Revesby Uniting Church would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Bidjigal people of the Darug Nation, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We'd also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today.
God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Weeping may last for the night, but a shout of joy comes in the morning. I shall joyfully sing of your loving kindness in the morning, for you have been my stronghold and a refuge in the day of my distress. O house of David, thus says the Lord, administer justice every morning and deliver the person who has been robbed from the power of his oppressor. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And in this is the gospel of Christ. Words of life for the world. Did you recognise any of those verses? Yes, there's some lovely ones, and some that I think we hold on to at different times in our life. I guess we can have different feelings about mornings, and that can change over time or just day to day. Sometimes mornings can be, it's morning, what have I got to do today? I've got to do the commute to work, I've got a big day of stuff happening at work, or it's a sad morning when you wake up and you remember something that's happened, and it just is sitting with you in the morning, maybe when you've lost someone or when you're worried about someone. That start to the day and that recollection of that feeling can sit with you. But often there's a theme of mornings being a fresh start, a fresh page, a day of possibilities. Well, so far today, we've had a little bit of a think about what we ate for breakfast when we were kids and as adults, and some of the changes that might have occurred as our tastes matured. We've seen how the very hungry caterpillar ate different things every day and finally came to be transformed into a butterfly. So we could maybe extend that metaphor a little bit further to think about our lives and our spiritual lives. I've read from a book at home that referenced other people who'd reflected on this, and I'm sure some of you have thought about it too, that we sometimes think about the stages of our life in that way. Carl Jung wrote about the stages of life, that the first half of our life is like the morning period, and it's when we're establishing ourselves. The second half of our life, the afternoon of our lives, might be a period of finding meaning and purpose in living. So there's no specific time frame of when that clicks over, and I think it's always just an ongoing thing. But it made me think about, where am I at, the morning or the afternoon of my life? And what are the moments of change or metamorphosis? Because we don't stay the same. If you think about it in terms of just children's development, what's cute in a little toddler, not cute in a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old, their behaviours. We mature, we develop as kids and as adults. David Suzuki wrote a book called Metamorphosis, which is talking about that concept of change. And as well as those changes that happen in our bodies and in our thinking and our many capacities that we have, there also needs to be an accompanying evolution in wisdom, in sensitivity and compassion. That may or may not be something that the world thinks about, but it's certainly something that we think about and reflect on here, isn't it? I wonder if that makes sense to you, that feeling of change out of mornings and afternoons. Over time, have there been changes? Are there changes in your spirituality, in your faithing, as we have on that board up the back, our faithing, which is a verb, our understanding, our questioning of God? Is there ongoing change and transformation? And when I think about that, I was thinking about, what do I take from the morning of my life? And I also thought about what nurtures and transforms me now. Haven't arrived, still going as a person. And thinking about the morning of my life, just to share a little bit about that, I grew up in a Christian family. My dad was an Anglican minister, so I very much was immersed in the church. Went to Sunday school, went to youth group. Dad was up in the pulpit preaching. I was a leader in Christian fellowships at high school and then at university when I went there. And then my boyfriend, then husband, was in theological college and became a minister in another denomination. So I became the minister's wife. And all that involved in those days. In a lot of ways, those years were very conservative theological context. Faith was pretty black and white and simple, and that was part of, I was young, so that's how I understood the world, pretty naive in a lot of ways. It was also a time that was rich in love and friendships and laughter. I was very safe in my family, had a great friendship group, mostly with the same belief system, and I was very focused on being a good Christian and helping others. That was it, really, for me in that morning period of my life. Then over time, I guess, other influences and impacts and changes came within me. In my career for over 20 years, I've worked for a Catholic organisation that provides relationship and family services to people. So I've worked alongside people from all different faiths and different cultures, and that's been really great to understand and connect with those people, clients and colleagues as well. I've had significant life experiences. I've become a parent. I've gone through separation, through bereavements, kinds of things that we all go through at different times. And particularly in my work, learning about and working with issues like family and domestic violence and child abuse, growing in the awareness of the need for inclusion and social justice in our society. Things that I didn't really have a concept about when I was 15 or even maybe 25. And now I'm part of this uniting church, and I'm so grateful to be part of this church, which is really different from the faith space of my youth. And the people are different. And so I think about who I am and who I'm still becoming and what I can still value from the morning period of my life. And what's brought me to this, I think, afternoon period within my life and the many people and experiences that have enriched me. And as I said, I haven't arrived. It's still an ongoing process, still opportunities to reflect and discern, to be transformed. We talked a couple of weeks ago about those wonderful ideas of justice, compassion and humility. And last week we looked at the Beatitudes. You remember all the words up there with candles on the table at the front. Who had a word? I had the word mercy. Who else had a word? Do you remember what your words were? Mark? Purity. Purity. Julie, do you remember your word? No? Putting you on the spot. But there was a whole lot of words that we thought about last week and linking back to that Micah passage about justice and compassion and humility. So when I think about the morning, I think there was still some constants in those verses that we talked about, that God's loving kindness, that endures, that doesn't change. His call to justice, one of those verses was administer justice in the morning. So there it is, right there. And we talk about God's compassions that fail not. So they're the things that stay with us, but we might understand them or experience them in different ways as we move from morning to afternoon. So as we often do here, we're going to take a moment to reflect. And I've got 2 questions that you might want to think about. Thinking about that theme of the morning, the early formative part of your life, what do you take or what do you leave behind from the morning of your life? And that's something you can just sit in some quietness, listen to the cicadas in the background, and just think about that for yourself. What is it that you think back on? What do you still hold on to? What maybe you've thought that doesn't fit anymore? So let's do that first, and then we'll think about the afternoon and we'll share something about that together. So let's just take a couple of moments to reflect.